Hello and welcome to Newscentre. I'm Parrikar. Today we take a look at the year that was for the defence sector and India's defence indigenization policy. The Defence Acquisition Council recently approved 24 procurement proposals worth over 84,300 crore rupees. Of these, 21 proposals worth over 82,000 crore rupees are to be procured from domestic manufacturers. The government has already released 4 positive defence indigenization lists since August 2020, which includes 411 items. The objective is to achieve $25 billion turnover in defence production and $5 billion in defence exports by 2025. Let's take a look at where the domestic industry stands in terms of manufacturing and buying of defence equipment. India's defence exports have jumped from 4,600 crore rupees in 2017 to 12,800 crore rupees in 2022. But defence imports have increased from 37,000 crore rupees in 2017 to 50,000 crore rupees in 2022. The value of defence production has increased from 84,600 crores in 21 to 94,800 crores in 2022. The government's capital outlay for defence indigenization has also increased from 58% of budget allocation to 68% of the budgeted amount. So where does India stand on India's defence indigenization push? How much have we achieved and what more is needed to achieve self-reliance in defence? Joining me now to take this forward is Vishal, Kanwar, Executive Director, Aerospace and Defence at PwC, Amit, Cowshish, former Financial Advisor, Acquisition at Defence Ministry, and Arun Ramchandani, Chairman of FICCI Defence and Aerospace Committee, also the Head of Defence at Larsen & Toubro. Also joining us, Neeraj Gupta, Chairman of Society of Indian Defence Manufacturers, International and Exports Committee and Managing Director at MKU. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Mr. Ramchandani, if I can begin with you. The capital outlay for local defence purchases has increased from 51,000 crore in 2021 to 84,598 crores in 22-23. What kind of an opportunity did this give to the domestic manufacturing industry to scale up capital investments, private capex in the defence sector?
So, thank you, Parikshit. As you can see, this is a significant spend on domestic industry. A large part of the spend also comes from the public sector undertakings. But for the first time, out of the spend of about 85,000 crores that you identified, about 25% is coming from the private industry. And what that means is that there are large programs where private industry would be directly involved. These include a number of platforms, the shipbuilding programs, etc., and have provided a great impetus to the industry to set up facilities, to scale up manufacturing, and to focus on building larger systems. It has also created an ecosystem of large number of micro and small and medium industries to get into the sector and support some of the bigger players in the sector. So I would say that things have scaled up significantly and the industry is on a takeoff mode.
All right, let me also get in Amit, Cowshish, former Financial Advisor, Acquisitions at the Defence Ministry. Mr. Cowshish, in terms of the indigenization list, the positive indigenization list, there are 4 of them that the government has come up since 2022 this year. Total of 411 items covered in these 4 lists. How have these lists, these negative import lists, helped the industry in manufacturing locally? And has this really improved our capability in defence manufacturing and our ability to reduce imports? Mr. Cowshish, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you this question. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So, sir, we wanted to ask you about the defence indigenization lists. There are 4 lists that have been issued since 2020 for about 411 items. 2 lists were issued this year. Have these lists really helped in reducing imports in the defense sector, scaling up domestic manufacturing?
First of all, I think these lists are more of an intention of expression of intent, because it's over a long period of time that the MOD intends to put an embargo on the import of the items which are listed in those lists. It's not a list of items which the MOD is going to certainly buy over the next couple of years. Secondly, there are a lot of things in that list which are already being made in India, and therefore there is no way MOD can actually go abroad and buy those items from abroad. Thirdly, unless the specifications are known, unless the numbers are known, it will be very difficult for the Indian industry to start to design and develop the item, any of the items which are listed in the four lists, and keep them ready, waiting for the MOD to issue the RFP and then to supply it to the MOD. So while it's a good sort of move in the sense that it gives expression to the MOD's intent not to import, but the fact of the matter is that it will not have an immediate and direct impact on domestic production. Domestic production will continue to be influenced by a variety of their factors, including the availability of funds, including how the specifications are made, how soon the decisions are taken, when the RFP is issued, which has been problematic in the past. I don't think that these lists will solve those problems.
Right. Neeraj Gupta, if I can get you in at this stage, there have been a lot of statements from the government, as Mr. Cowshish said, showing its intent towards greater self-reliance, reducing imports, becoming a big defense exporter as well. What are some of the roadblocks that you have been seeing over the last few years as far as manufacturing in India is concerned?
Thank you, Parikshit. I would say, first of all, as Mr. Amit Cowshish mentioned, that the government should come out and spell out their requirements very clearly, including the specificational requirements, because at times the industry is not really aware what are the real specs that are required, and even if they are there, they tend to change from time to time. So that's one of the big challenges. Second, I would say that the government has laid out a list of Make 1 and Make 2 projects. Almost 40-50 projects have been mentioned as Make 2, but the time it takes for them to issue a sanction order, project sanction order, it takes a long time. I believe that should be curtailed a lot. Then another area where I would say that the industry really faces a challenge is when they develop a product, how they can test and evaluate a product, given the requirements of the defense forces are very, very peculiar, and those cannot be done at any civil laboratories. And testing the equipment or a product or trial and evaluation takes a longer time as well. So these are the immediate few areas which I would say that the government should be looking upon to really propel the Make in India process in defense, or the Atmanirbhar Bharat as we call.
Right. Let's now discuss the entire capital outlay as far as the defense budget goes. And I'll go across to Vishal at this point of PwC. Vishal, as far as the capital outlay, and we got this data from Mr. Cowshish, and I'd like to ask you about this. The total capital outlay in the defense budget was 1.52 crores, 1.5 lakh crores. Now, as far as this entire capital outlay goes, how much of this is going towards R&D? And do you feel we need more investments towards research and development in the defense sector across companies? Yes, bigger companies are able to make greater investments in innovation, but when it comes to middle-level companies, startups, Do we need to do more? Vishal, are you able to hear me? All right, we'll get back to Vishal in just a bit, and I hope we can dial him. Amit, Cowshish, if I can come back to you, sir. What more do you feel we need to do when it comes to R&D in the defense sector as far as the total capital budget goes?
I think it is important to understand that this 1.5 lakh crore that you mentioned, it includes the allocation for acquisition of land and for execution of civil works. And insofar as the DRDO is concerned, the amount, to my recollection, is just about 12,000 crores. And this amount of 12,000 crores is meant not just for R&D, it is meant for the capital expenditure of R&D, DRDO, which means the setting of labs, buying new equipment, and so on and so forth. So it's only a fraction of that allocation which actually goes into pure R&D. Now, the question is that if R&D is to be promoted, you have to pump in more money. Would this meager amount of, my sense is that out of maybe 12,000 crores, thereabouts, maybe not more than 50% or even less of this amount would be spent on pure R&D. Now, with just about 7,000 crores, you cannot really give the much needed impetus to defense R&D. Secondly, it's a long haul. The R&D so far, from my understanding, has been all over. It has been into a lot of things. It instead needs to focus on certain critical areas. And as I said, it's a long haul, so it has to carry those programs to finality rather than, spending its energy and dissipating its energies and funds into a very large number of programs. So a more focused approach on a limited number of projects with some more money being given to the DRDO and greater involvement of the private sector in research and development can make an impact.
Right. Vishal Kanwar from PwC is back with us on the phone, I believe. Vishal, what are some of the global practices in R&D in giving a long-term demand visibility to the industry that we can replicate here in India, and what's missing in our ecosystem currently?
Yeah, thanks, Parrikar. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So I think looking at the entire value chain from R&D to manufacturing, system integration, moving on to MRO, and also upgrades and life extension is what we need to focus on. Like very rightly brought out by Amit Cowshish, just the for positive indigenization is just one bucket. There are other buckets of ease of doing business, of make projects, of encouraging startup industry ecosystem under IDUX and technology development funds. These are the other areas. And of all of them, R&D, I think, is I would say the edifice on the entire impetus in indigenization in India. And insofar as R&D is concerned, when we work with our network firms abroad, we are creating an R&D strategy for the country's ecosystem is the need of the hour. We recently did a thought leadership. What is that area which would impact the future of warfare the most? Is it the kinetic warfare or the non-kinetic warfare? Within non-kinetic warfare, what are the areas where we have synergies in India in IT, software development, engineering services, which we can leverage to take leadership in the next 10 to 25 years is where we need to go. Focusing on just kinetic platforms like ships, aircraft, submarines, tanks, is something that, yes, we should be self-reliant. But I think as a country in aerospace and defense, we need to think about where can we take leadership in the A&D ecosystem, and that is where the non-kinetic side of electronic warfare, cyber warfare, AI, ML, the emerging technology areas is we need to focus. But for all that to happen, we have to create a R&D strategy, a R&D roadmap. And that's what most countries, whether you look at Europe or US or even the Asia Pac, are doing, because unless you see where do you need to go for developing a specific technology, whether it's applied or product development, you would not really get the bang for the buck, and you would spread yourself thin. And that's the point which I would like to make on R&D specifically.
All right. On that note, we're going to take a short break, but we'll request all our guests to stay with us. We'll discuss India's defense acquisitions in greater detail and roadmap for indigenization for 2023 when we are back. Welcome back. We are in conversation. Vishal Kanwar, Executive Director, Aerospace and Defense at PwC. Amit, Cowshish, former Financial Advisor, Acquisition at the Defense Ministry. Arun Ramchandani, Chairman of FICCI, Defense and Aerospace Committee. Also joining us, Neeraj Gupta, Chairman of SIDM's International and Exports Committee. Thank you very much once again for being with us. Mr. Ramchandani, coming to you. As far as foreign procurements go, they stood at 53,118 crores in 2021. What do you think will be our import bill as far as this fiscal is concerned? Do you see this going down in any way in the next fiscal? And also, what other opportunities do you see for companies like L&T, some of the leading defense manufacturers in India, as far as building some major weapon systems or other opportunities in the defense sector?
So, Parikshit, I really foresee that imports would move downward. Of course, there are some critical weapon systems which probably the imports would continue. Having said that, the latest DAC accorded AONs, or acceptance of necessity, for very large programs like the futuristic infantry combat vehicle, light tanks, mounted guns, a range of missile systems, multi-purpose vessels, and all of these actually augur well for the domestic industry. All these programs are under the Indian design, develop, and manufacture category. And what that really means is that the large platforms will now start getting sourced from the domestic industry. Of course, for all these programs to fructify into procurement cases, it would take anything around 2 to 3 years for these to be converted into orders. But the die is cast, the trend is set, and a large number of platforms will start now getting produced locally. The focus on IDBM is a very significant one because, and to that extent, the negative list kind of emphasize that these kind of platforms will not be imported in the future. Take a case of light tank or the mounted guns. It is clearly identified as IDBM, which maybe 8-10 years back, these kind of programs would be, under buy and make or global procurement. And these are all large programs, and they will signal a shift from sourcing of weapon systems from foreign countries to domestic manufacturers.
Right. Let me get in Neeraj Gupta at this stage. Neeraj, as far as exports go, we've seen them grow from 4,682 crores in 17-18 to 12,815 crores in 21-22. As per SIDM's own estimates, what could be the level of exports from India in this fiscal? And do you feel that this growth is unsatisfactory? More can be done? Some of the roadblocks that you see on that front?
I would say that this year we could look at somewhere around 18 to 20,000 crores of exports by March end, because government has already achieved, I will almost like 12 to 14,000 crores of exports till now. More can be done, yes. I would say that one of the key things that India should really look at is having more logistical arrangements with more and more countries. That could be one area which will help defense exports boost. Second could be offering lucrative lines of credit to countries that are looking at Indian equipment at more affordable costs. That will certainly help. And as India has started inviting more and more delegations from abroad or asking them to come and visit our equipments, and more joint exercises are happening within the country and outside the countries as well. I think all this will lead to promotion of exports, and I'm sure by 2025 we will have we'll be able to achieve the target of $5 billion exports. That's my view.
All right. Mr. Cowshish, coming to you, very often and every year there is this debate over whether we should have a bigger defense budget. The defense budget is approximately 2.9% of the GDP. Looking at the fiscal constraints that we have, what more can be done to grow the Indian defense market, make sure that our needs are met domestically and we have cutting-edge technology?
It's a very difficult question to answer for the simple reason that if the defense budget is to increase, there has to be the revenues of the government have to go up, whether it is through taxation or borrowing. And as we are all aware, there are political and economic implications of either increasing the taxes or borrowing beyond a certain limit. So this problem will continue. I think the defense budget cannot be increased to the level that is expected by the strategic community. And if we look at the figures of the 15th Finance Commission, even after factoring in about 9% year-on-year growth in defense budget, over a five-year period, from 21-22 to 25-26, there was to be a shortfall of 15,24,000 crores in defense allocation, which means that this is the gap between the requirement as worked out by the armed forces or the Ministry of Defense and the likely allocation. Now, it's very difficult to. It's going to be very difficult to bridge this kind of gap, even by instituting this non-lapsable defense modernization fund of less than 2 lakh crore. So the only solution that I can think of is that the planning has to be financially viable. I mean, we tend to plan without taking into account the likely allocations over the medium term and the long term. So we need to be more modest, more practical, and the plans have to be financially viable. There has to be focus on what can be done with the given resources. Maybe some amount of optimization within the services, jointness, etc., can save some money. But overall, I think this problem is going to persist, and it's going to be difficult for any government to allocate the kind of money that the armed forces are looking for.
Right. My final question to Vishal Kanwar, as we are running out of time. As we were speaking to Mr. Ramchandani a short while back and Mr. Gupta, Vishal, would you agree that the industry needs a long-term roadmap? It would be good if they could get the kind of a roadmap for the kind of capabilities that the Army, Air Force and Navy need for the next 10 to 15 years. Is this a global practice? And do you think that would give some clarity to the industry? Yes, we hear of big headline numbers when it comes to statements from the Defense Acquisition Council about 84,000, 85,000 crore worth of proposals being approved. This has a 3 to 4 year time frame. But if one has a clarity on what is the kind of roadmap, acquisition roadmap the government has or MOD has, does that make it easier to work? And do you feel we need to handhold companies better?
Yeah, thanks, Parrikar. I think that's a very interesting question. And I would say that given the fact that, as other panelists brought out, defense is a lumpy business with long gestation periods. So unless there is demand visibility to the industry, whether it's a startup or a mid-cap or a large industry, there are huge cost of capital. So therefore, there are 3 points I want to put forth. One, there has to be a visibility given to the industry, and the government is doing a lot in this direction. The fact that those 53 challenges which have been won in IDEX and fundings up to 2 crore the government is giving under the IDEX challenge program is a step in that direction. But more needs to happen. The current TPCR needs to be more proactive. And like I said, there has to be a visibility as to where do we go in future. And like we see in other countries happening where, the future visibility is created, whether it's Pentagon or the respective MODs are interacting with the industry. The second point I want to make is I also want to say that hand-holding acts for industry is very important. Whilst there is 25% investment which is going to come into the R&D as per the budget, 68% investment would come in for domestic procurement. But how do we develop partnerships and encourage the industry for the investment and for manufacturing in aerospace and defense? And the last point I want to say is the gaps which we see in domestic manufacturing and exports. We should also look at exports from the point of view of any industry which come up in India has to be, in addition to make in India, also make for the world. And that is the buzzword for the government as well. In doing so, what do we do to encourage exports? A classic example is, how Israel has an organization called SIBAT, which ensures that one company manufacturing a radar coming out of Israel, another company does not cannibalize it. So there is a holistic approach for exports from a country, and like what Neeraj mentioned, whether it is under the line of credit or whether you create a way of playing by becoming a value player abroad, bringing in cost effectiveness as well as giving the best of quality. How do we look at exports in a comprehensive and in a manner where all of us, the entire Indian industry goes out and operates in a manner where we get business from across the globe for a defense industry? I think those are a couple of things which I wanted to mention.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Vishal Kanwar, Amit Cowshish, Arun Ramchandani, Neeraj Gupta, telling us what India needs to have greater exports in the defense sector, greater self-reliance as well. One of the points coming out is that we need a long-term roadmap, capability roadmap that the defense forces need. We need more defense reforms as well, and better utilization of the defense budget that is available with the government. That's all we have time for. Thank you for watching Newscentre.